Good afternoon, it's Ramona. It is 39 degrees here in Houston, which is a little on the frigid side for us. It's definitely soup and biscuit weather. So I am making homemade biscuits, and when I mentioned homemade biscuits on another video a while back, somebody had mentioned, oh, you need to do a cook along, and I'm sorry, I can't remember who that was. I think it's one of two people, but I don't want to say for certain. So anyhow, we're making biscuits today. Now, I try to bring my stand mixer over here with an extension cord. There's no outlet on this side, but my extension cord is a 2-pronger and my stand mixer is a 3-pronger, so I couldn't get the stand mixer to plug into the extension cord. So unfortunately, we're gonna have to be doing it, moving around a little bit. I'm gonna try to keep it to a minimum, and I'll have to take breaks probably to, move the dough over here and whatnot. So just bear with me if you're kind of not into this like very basic cooking video with the terrible skills. Move on. But anyway, we're going to do what I can. Okay, so first of all, I'm drinking hot cocoa because it is like super cold here as I was. And I wanted to give a shout out to Brenda at Pretty Polka Dots for recommending this last year Swiss Miss Peppermint Hot Cocoa. I have mine in K-cups, but you can also get it in little packages. It is quite yummy. If you like hot cocoa and peppermint, this is the one to get. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to show you the recipe that we're using, and I'll briefly go over the ingredients, and then I'll kind of start getting into it again. I apologize for the horrible filming skills, but this is as skilled as she gets. This is all I got. Okay, so this is a Pinterest recipe I'm following for pumpkin biscuits, and you'll know it's the right one when you see that picture of the glazed biscuit, and it's by Recipe Girl. I know you can't see that, but it's by Recipe Girl. It's pumpkin biscuits on Pinterest. I don't do the glaze thing. I'm one of those people where I don't like my ice cream and cake to mix. I don't like wet and dry together, so I don't do the glaze. But if you want to do the glaze, the recipe is there for that. Okay, for ingredients, we have brown sugar. We have baking powder, a little bit of salt. This is a third of a cup, and I'll explain the recipe as I go along, a third of a cup of buttermilk, which I don't have buttermilk. But not to worry, if your recipe calls for buttermilk and you don't have buttermilk, just put in a capful of distilled vinegar. It works just as fine. I'm going to set that to the side. We have 3/4 of a cup of pumpkin puree, not pumpkin pie mix, just the straight pumpkin puree, nothing added to it. We have baking soda, and it's in a mason jar because nobody yet has figured out how to make a baking soda box resealable. So just put it in a mason jar and label it, and you're good to go. And flour and cold butter that I've cubed up into little cubes, like this size. That's it. Okay, so let me put this down, and I'm going to try to figure out how to do it. I think what I'm going to do is kind of put all the dried ingredients in a bowl here, and then I'll walk them across to the stand mixer so you're not going back and forth with me. I know that's going to be kind of painful at the very least. So all your dry ingredients go in first. Now, my mother makes the best biscuits in town, and my niece Casey, as well as everybody else, myself included, can probably put down a whole batch of biscuits on her own because they are so good. And I'm going to give you a couple of tricks and secrets that my mother told me, and every time she makes biscuits at home, I always watch her. She tells her the same thing all the time. Don't make them too dry. They got to be wet, and don't overwork your biscuit dough. Those are two very important things. Okay, so like I said, I'm just going to put all the dried ingredients here and then we'll move them across. Okay, so we're going to start with 1 3/4 cups of flour. And this, as I said, is not my mother's recipe. This is a recipe I found on Pinterest. But whatever biscuit recipe you're using, the same principles apply. Don't make them too dry and don't overwork them because you're going to have tough biscuits, and you definitely don't want tough biscuits. So 1 3/4 cups of flour. And, I'm not very Martha Stewart about this, but that's 1, and that's about 3/4 of a cup. And again, I'm not too. I am following the recipe, but If after all is said and done, if I find that it's too dry, I'm going to add some more milk, or if it's too wet, I'll add some more flour. So as far as the flour goes, there's a little wiggle room there. Okay, we need a half teaspoon of salt. So it's gonna go chugga. Okay, that's about half a teaspoon. And baking soda is 1/4 of a teaspoon, right here. And the baking soda and the buttermilk have some kind of chemical reaction, which nobody has imparted to me the knowledge on that, but it makes it rise or do something like that. It's like the acid and the base, you know, do something. Okay, what else are we missing? Baking powder, 2½ teaspoons of baking powder, which also is a leavening agent as well. So it's, what is it? 2½ teaspoons. So this is a half teaspoon here. And 2 more teaspoons. And you know, if you're actually seeing this video, that means it didn't turn out too horrible. I'll probably watch it and see how it goes. If you're not seeing it, then it was really bad. Okay, so is that all the dry ingredients? Flour, oh no, brown sugar. We need 1/4 cup of brown sugar. And I keep well, I don't know where you guys live, but in Houston, it's really humid, especially in the summer. That's 1/4 cup. So I keep my brown sugar and flour and white sugar and everything in like Tupperware. This is like lock and lock stuff, like with to keep the moisture out, to keep the moisture out. When I first moved to Houston 29 years ago, I went to pull some flour out of the cupboard, and there was like, what in the heck is that? Like they're called weevils. They're like little, I don't know, they're disgusting. So that's when I knew you have to keep the moisture out of this stuff. Like, I'm not a brainy smurf. Okay, I'm just gonna give this a stir so we can incorporate all the dry ingredients. And then I will move you over to the stand. I think we'll do that. Okay, so are we ready? Yes. Okay, so this is all the dry ingredients. The next step is we're going to incorporate the butter. So let me put this in the bowl over here. And I will move you over. Let me just, oh, you know what? That was kind of silly. I should have brought the bowl over, right? The mixing bowl, not a separate bowl. Okay. Anyway. She's not the brightest star in the sky some days. All right, we're gonna move over here. And let's see if I want you to be able to see right inside the bowl so you can see the texture of what we're shooting for here. And I've got my overhead light on here, and I've got all the lights on I can have. That's all I have. Okay, so I'm going to, if it makes too much noise, I'm going to start the mixer. Obviously, it's going to be low because we don't want the flour to go every other place. And I'm going to slowly add a few chunks of that butter at a time until it becomes kind of a mealy, pebbly texture without too many big chunks of butter. You can have chunks of butter because when the steam escapes, when the butter melts, it's going to help rise the biscuits as well, but you just don't want big chunks like this. Whoops, sorry. Ooh, like that. Okay, here we go. We should have some mood music or something, some baking music. So I'm just going to slowly add this butter. And like, it's so hard when the biscuits come out of the oven. I don't know if you can hear me, I hope you can. It is so hard to keep your paws off the warm biscuits. Because like, who doesn't love warm biscuits right out of the oven with butter? My grandfather used to put molasses on his biscuits. Some people put jam, honey, nothing. And biscuits are not hard to make. The hardest part is getting all your ingredients together. It's not hard at all. Now, of course, my mother doesn't have a stand mixer. Oh, let me also add, your oven is preheated to 425. You have to cook biscuits at a hot temperature, hot and fast. Don't be turning it on 350, then 425. And that, I was reminded of that because I have this butter on a piece of wax paper sitting on the stove, obviously, and it's starting to melt from the bottom because the oven is on. But anyway, I was saying, Mom doesn't have a stand mixer. She makes her biscuits, you know, by hand with a pastry cutter, you know, that like 5-prong thing that you bounce up and down, up and down. Mom is a good baker. I've got a lot of her recipes, and I have a lot of my grandmother's recipes. And my grandmother also was a very good baker, and she baked a lot out of her head, you know, as that generation did. And so there are some recipes, but there are some are not. And when she died, like I think 5 or 6 years ago, I asked Mom, could I have my grandmother's recipe book? Because, you know, it was all written in her own hand, all those old recipes, and it was gone. And, you know, whoops, you don't want to go too fast. Yeah, so that was really disappointing. I kind of think I know where it is in the family, but, you know, who knows? Who knows where it is? Anyway, it's very disappointing that it's gone. But whoever has it, I hope they really treasure it and respect it and appreciate it for what it is, because, you know, here she goes. She's going to cry. She's not going to cry, but you know what I'm saying. Those old memories, those old books written in our grandparents and great-grandparents, you can't buy that. You can't remake that. That is one of a kind. And, you know, we really need to treasure and bring back those old recipes that our grandmothers and grandfathers and families, you know, had and carry on. And I just love baking, and I love baking old recipes that, you know, family recipes. Okay, I'm going to stop this for a second. Okay, I hope you heard something of what I said, but it wasn't really important. Okay, so let's see how we're doing here. So a lot of the the butter is cut in now, and there's a couple chunks. And yes, my hands are clean, and my counter is clean that we're going to be rolling the dough on. We're not even going to roll the dough. Don't even get your rolling pin out. Don't even do that. Okay, so I'm happy with that. There was a couple chunks there. I'm just kind of rubbing through my fingers. But definitely you don't want to add the liquids until the very last minute, because if you add it too soon, by the time you incorporate it all and get the butter to where it needs to be, you'll have ruined the dough. It'll be over mixed. It'll be dry, tough, and a complete disaster. Okay, so we're almost done. So how hard is that? The mixer did everything. We just kind of measured out the ingredients. So now we're going to add the pumpkin and the milk, and we are not going to mix it for long, only until everything is incorporated. Sorry for turning away there. Okay. I think the best way to do this is, I'm going to make a mess. I'm taking this off for just a second. I'm just putting in the pumpkin that I have pre-measured. And every time I have made these, they have turned out wonderful. So hopefully today it'll be a good experience. And again, if you're not even seeing this, you won't even know you're not seeing this. That means it was a bust. But okay, if we follow Diane's rules, don't overmix it and keep it wet, we'll be good. I just know it, okay? Just remember that. Don't overmix it and keep it wet. Okay. Back on. Okay, a little mess there, but that's okay. We'll clean it up. Okay, so here's where we just want to be very careful. We're not going to overmix it. We're just going to mix it long enough till everything is incorporated, and then I'll look at it and see if it needs either more milk or more flour or if we're good. Lock and load. Okay, now you can see that is kind of clumping together there, and I want it a little bit looser than that. So I'm going to add a little bit of milk. And don't forget, when we put it down on the board, we're going to be adding more flour. So if it's dry now, it's going to be even more dry. So don't be afraid to add more milk, because you can always add more flour. That's not a problem. Okay. And here's kind of making a squishy noise, squish, squish, squish. Okay, I'm just going to scrape this down for a second. And so really, that's about all I'm going to mix it, just long enough to incorporate this. And again, when we put it on the board, we're not going to be kneading this like flour. Brisket dough and flour dough are two totally different animals. You do not want to knead biscuit dough. Let me see. Okay, that's good. Okay, so, excuse me, pardon me. So there's where we're at. I see a little bit of chunky butter there, and that's totally fine. Let me see, right there. So little bitty pea-sized ones are totally fine. It's very wet and sticky at this point, and that's the way it's supposed to be, so don't panic. I am now going to just kind of clear out my space over here. And see, once you make it, all you need the recipe for is the ingredients, the measurements on the ingredients, and that's it. All right, so I'm just going to scrape this down, get it all off. I might not even, oh, I will have to break it because I'm going to show you the finished product. I was going to say, I might even have to break this video, but I will. But we'll get the baking, you know, the mixing part of it done, and then we'll come back and show you the finished product. Okay. You know, and our grandmothers and mothers didn't have the technology to have these stand mixers, which, you know, it could be a good thing and a bad thing depending on your point of view. Okay, so we're going to switch over here. Alrighty, so now you need to put a lot of flour down. And I have a biscuit cutter. Where'd my biscuit cutter go? So it came in a set of 3, you know, cookie cutter, biscuit cutter. If you don't have a biscuit cutter, just use a glass. That's what my grandmother and my mother used forever and a day, is just a glass, whatever works. Okay, so flour. Again, don't be afraid to put too much flour. I'm checking constantly to make sure I'm in the picture here, because our dough is really wet and we want it wet. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. Okay, I'm just kind of scooping all this out. So I will be having some biscuits with tomato soup for my supper. No, it's not homemade tomato soup, but it's Campbell's, what is it called? It's in like, it's not in a can, it's in like a plastic bowl. Like, I think it's tomato and basil, I think, or something like that. Okay. And to take off all your rings, you are going to get messy. That's the good thing, the fun thing about baking. Just kind of go with it. All right. Okay. Checking again if we're still in the shot. We are. Okay. Now you're going to take some more flour on the top because your hands are going to get sticky. Your hands are going to get sticky. And you're gently just going to pat this and kind of bring it all together. We're not doing big kneading. I'm just kind of incorporating what other flour is there on the board. And like, that's it. That's it. Just kind of, you bring it all together. You're just going to mash it down with hand. You could use a rolling pin, but you really don't need to. You don't want to make them too short. The last time I made them too short for some reason. I think they're too short again. I mean short like that. They should be nice and tall. So I'm just going to tall those up a little bit. Okay. And my cookie sheet is right here. Our oven is hot. I know it's preheated because I preheated it well ahead of time. And just go straight down. Okay. Come on, baby, come on. That turned out a little messy. What happened there? Let me froth it out a little bit more. I don't like that one. That's it. I don't like that one. Now, they say not to go down and twist because those layers, if you twist, you're going to seal off the layers, where if you just go straight down and straight up, you'll keep the layers, you know, open, I guess. Okay. Now, you're going to feel like there's a lot of flour here, but you can just knock off the flour when they come out of the oven. No big deal. Okay. made these too high this time. We'll see. We'll see. I know last time I made them too short. Okay, looking good. But no matter how they look, they're going to taste good. Okay, now also, and then so you have this little bit more here, so we can make a few more. Again, same thing, don't overwork it, just do it enough to kind of get it together. Some people make biscuits in a cast iron pan. I've seen that before, like on the Food Network or whatever. And some people put their biscuits like side by side touching. I've seen that before. That's not how we make them, but whatever. And this is a very soft dough. Okay. Now, and they do look gnarly. I'm not saying they don't. They do. And I think we can get one more out of here. Actually, I'm not even going to cut it. I'm just going to put them down like that. Let's find a place for them. Okay. All right, so that is our pumpkin biscuits way over yonder there. So I'm going to put these in the oven at 425 for, I'm looking at the recipe right here, 18 to 22 minutes. So I'm going to have a look at them at 18 minutes. When they're nice and golden brown, you'll know they're done. They'll be risen a little bit. I'm not sure because, again, I made them too short last time. This guy is really looking pathetic, like he looks like really hungover or something, but he'll be all right. So anyway, so I'm going to clean up, I'm going to put them in the oven, I'm going to check them after 18 minutes, and I'll take them out, you know, around that time, 18, 20 minutes when they're golden brown, and I will see you back then. Bye. Okay, everybody, we're back, and we have a pretty gnarly bunch of biscuits here, and I wasn't going to film it, but actually it's good to show things don't always go right, and you just kind of have to analyze what you did wrong. And I did overbake them probably by a minute or so because they're a little too brown. They're not too bad, I guess, but they're all misshapen, and I think I was so concerned about not making them tall enough like I did last time that I kind of made them too tall, and they kind of spread out a little bit. Maybe they're a little too soft, but I tasted the top of that one and it was good. So, you know, just next time I just try to do better. Like every time I make them, I try to do something different, make it better. Last time I made them too short, so I thought I'd try them too tall today, but that didn't work either. But eventually I'll get it right. But this one's not too bad. And see, this is what I mean when I said don't cut down and twist, because if you twist, you seal off those layers and then they don't, you know, puff up or rise or whatever. That's my understanding anyway. See, that one again too that looks good. So I mean, they taste okay. They taste good actually. No, they taste good. But the shape is not quite right. But anyway, try them. They're biscuits are really easy to make, and everybody's afraid to make biscuits, but they're not hard at all. Just keep them, don't overwork them, and don't make them too dry, and you'll be successful. Hopefully yours will look better than mine, but give them a try. And I really like these pumpkin biscuits, but if you're a mother or grandmother or somebody has your own recipe, give them a try. And yeah, that's what I have today for Biscuit Making 101. So I hope you liked it, and I will see you soon. Bye.